Magic here. Todd Stevens is on your left with man mid-range. Dillon McGough is on your right with red-black Vengevine. He's a Baltimore Orioles fan, which means it's been a tough season for him. Just took Manny Machado right from him.
And couldn't get rid of Adam Jones.
Adam Jones' refusal to leave was awesome. I loved it.
He was right, though. He's right.
What, Adam Jones?
His comments about it, he was absolutely correct.
Yeah, he's basically, I don't want to go anywhere.
And I've worked really hard, and we've worked really hard to be in this position.
Yep.
And I'm going to exercise my rights. Yep. Good for him.
I agree.
But, you know, maybe not ideal for a rebuilding team.
Insolent Neonate off of a Blood Crypt is where Dillon starts. For Todd Stevens, it's a Windswept Teeth into a Forest into a Birds of Paradise. A classic Todd Stevens start when you're watching Modern. As here comes the Neonate. Going to strike in here for one. There is a bridge from below here in Dillon's hand. Let's see where he wants to go. He'll go to a Greater Gargadon. Very nice. 10 counters on that beast. This red-black Vengevine deck is very, very explosive. But it all depends on what kind of draws it has in the opening stages of the game. So for this draw here for Dillon, this is a slow one.
Yeah, it looks like his hand is a Vengevine and 2 Bridge from Belows. So could really use a Faithless Looting.
Great Gargadon is that 10 mana, 9/7 suspend for a red beast. You can sacrifice an artifact, creature, or a land to remove a time counter from Greater Gargadon, but you can only use that ability if Greater Gargadon is suspended. Stevens will sacrifice a Misty Rainforest here. He's going to fall down to 18. Actually, let's make it 17. Forgot that attack there with the Insolent Neonate. See which land Todd Stevens wants to get here. He'll go with a basic forest. And now it'll be a Neither Reliquary. This is Todd Stevens' bread and butter here. He's been doing this for years. This Gargadon's going to fall down to 9. But this is not Green-White Value Town, not Green-White Collected Company, the deck that Todd Stevens is known for, the deck that he has won so much with in both Modern Opens and Team Constructed Opens. As here's a Stitcher's Supplier. Looks like a Walking Ballista, a Faithless Looting are going to go to the graveyard. Now Insolent Neonate is going to sacrifice, discard Bridge from Below, and draw a card. And because of the weird interaction and sacrificing Neonate and discarding is part of the cost, that means that a 2/2 zombie is on the way here for Dillon. Now there's a zombie. And it looks like maybe a little bit of inability to bring back Vengevine this turn. But Dillon says, I will sacrifice Stitcher's Supplier. I'll make another zombie. And now 3 more cards we placed in the graveyard. Gravecrawler among them, unfortunately for Dillon. No black mana, maybe? Maybe he's got a black mana in hand? I don't think that's the case. Oh, he's got a Bloodstained Mire, yeah. He's got a zombie to get back the Gravecrawler, too. And Dillon will sacrifice that land. I like the patience here this game from Dillon. Would have been very easy to just sacrifice that Insolent Neonate very early to get a bridge in the graveyard. But he gave himself a little bit of time to draw towards something. In this case, it was Stitcher's Supplier. That's 6 more cards in the graveyard, found a Vengevine, and now his engine's online.
Yeah, the issue there, I think, is if he puts Bridge in the graveyard and doesn't draw something relevant, he's just at a dead end. He wanted to wait until he had a draw step that ensured he had a little bit of cushion, that he wasn't leaning on just one blind draw. And now you see the results here.
Gravecrawler is going to come back from the graveyard. It's going to trigger Vengevine. Vengevine, because 2 creatures have been played, Stitcher's Supplier and Gravecrawler. It's now the 4/3 haste on the battlefield. It's going to serve in here into what is a 4/4 Knight of the Reliquary. Stevens will take that damage as Knight of the Reliquary is not active just yet. But right now for Dillon, he's got one of the engines going for this deck that is very powerful, which is Greater Gargadon plus Gravecrawler with at least 1 Bridge from Below in the graveyard, Patrick.
Good setup. A little slow out of the gate, but now things are really humming.
This will be a voice of resurgence.
Nice!
Temple Garden tapped. That's your guy right there. Voice of resurgence.
Woo!
we're going to see Dillon sacrifice Vengevine and Gravecrawler to make 2 zombies because it's very easy for him to bring Vengevine back because of the Gravecrawler interaction.
Yeah, you're seeing the engine online now.
And a timely Faithless Looting draw. Now he's going to go overboard. 2 cards will be drawn. I think we're going to see Bridge from Below and Vengevine go to the graveyard. So if you thought he was doing busted stuff before, you better look out because now he's going to bring a Gravecrawler back. He'll sacrifice Attrigrated Garganon. Not 1, but 2 zombies when they're in the battlefield. And I think we're going to see him do it again. That, of course, will bring back not 1, but 2 copies of Vengevine. Sacrifice that. Get 2 more zombies. Vengevines, of course, have haste. And yes, that Knight of the Reliquary can outpace these Vengevines. I'm not sure that Todd Stevens' deck can outpace all of these zombies. And it's going to be time for him to find that main deck copy of Settle the Wreckage here, Patrick.
Yeah, he's drawing very, very thin at this point. Even the Settle is more of a temporary reprieve than a full solution.
Yeah, this engine does a nice job of beating cards like Settle the Wreckage. Now, here's what's interesting. Todd Stevens has the opportunity to block something here to attempt to get rid of the Bridge from Belows, but Garganon does such a great job of controlling that.
Yeah, there's if Stevens can't interact with the graveyard here, he can swim upstream for a little while, but he's eventually going to get killed. McGough goes too tall and too wide.
Looks like Stevens has some interest in blocking these Vengevines here, hoping that one of his creatures will die. And if it does, that'll remove the Bridge from Belows from Dillon's graveyard. However, Dillon knows exactly how his deck works, and he says, oh, you block my Vengevines? Well, before damage, I'm going to sacrifice both of them, make 4 zombies, make sure my Bridge from Belows stay exactly where I want them, which is in the graveyard, and oh, by the way, you take 8. It appears as though we are out of zombie tokens, and now, oh boy, Viscerous here.
Ooh.
You want to talk about having the engine online, folks. That's exactly what Dillon McGough has right now. He is going to play a Viscerous here, and he is making this look pretty easy in game number 1. You said this was a crucial game for Todd Stevens to win, and it doesn't look like he's going to get this one.
Well, I think it's actually on McGough's side to get game 1 here because I do think things get worse post-board.
Sure.
But same concept. Stevens has a short list of impactful cards and a lot of nonsense, and if he doesn't find one of his impactful cards, even with the Vengevine deck being a little slow out of the gate, now we're here. Though, Voice of Resurgence, assuming, the game becomes about removal spells or playing spells on Todd's turn, you could see him get 1, maybe 2 elementals out of those.
Tremoka's command the draw. Yeah.
These are the right tools for the job. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Oh, Todd, don't ever change.
Todd Stevens is going to concede this game. Dillon McGough is going to win game number 1 here over Todd Stevens. Red-Black Vengevine going to run all over Bant mid-range. As Patrick is going to work on trying to keep it together.
Yeah, that's the stuff. That's the sugar in my coffee right there. Oh, let's go to the sideboard, shall we?
Todd Stevens is working with 4 negates, 3 surgical extraction, 2 engineered explosives, 2 stony silence, 2 warship, which is definitely going to be good here, a Baneslayer Angel, and a Todd Stevens staple, Elspeth Suds champion.
Really good sideboard here. I think the surgical extractions, engineered explosives, and the warships are all excellent here. And I don't think Baneslayer Angel and Elspeth are that shabby. If Stevens has other expensive cards he can cut, they're probably better than most.
For Dillon, after a convincing Game 1 win, 4 Ley Line of the Void, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Bitter Blossom, 2 Ingot Chewer, 2 Lightning Axe, an Ancient Grudge, and a Lightning Bolt.
The creature removal here. The 2 copies of Lightning Axe and the Lightning Bolt here I think are very good. I wouldn't bother with Thoughtseize. Stevens' deck is a bit too redundant for my taste. Although, it's possible you bring in Thoughtseize in almost all the post-board games because you assume your opponent has anti-graveyard cards you're really concerned with. But I definitely like the creature removal, the Lightning Axes and the Lightning Bolt.
Well, those are the options there for both players.
So those cards are not great against Voice of Resurgence, so we'll see.
We will see. Those are the options there for both players. Game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment. But before we get there, we got to talk about the Season 2 schedule here on the SCG Tour, where we are here this weekend in Baltimore We take a little bit of time off before we head over to Syracuse for Modern Open. Then we come back to Baltimore for Legacy, and then Guilds of Ravnica will be out, and we go into Columbus, baby.
Philadelphia will be teams in October. Dallas, Modern. We round out October with a Modern Open in Charlotte. Regional Championships November 10th. Go.StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information when we get a little bit closer to that event. Teams in Las Vegas. I repeat, teams in Las Vegas. Get your group together and head on out. Then we'll be back here in Baltimore for a Modern Open to start December, and then the Season 2 Invitational, Roanoke, Virginia, December 7th through the 9th, Modern and Standard as the Invitational formats.
Let's talk playmats very quickly. For all of our Standard Open and Classic players, it'll be Siege Game Commander from Dominaria. For all of our Modern Open and Classic players, it'll be the very powerful Land War Elves. And, of course, for our Legacy Open and Classic players, Legacy Staple.
Legacy Staple.
Wizards Lightning. Go.StarCityGames.com/schedule for more information. Free exclusive playmats with entry into any 2018 Season 2 Open Classic or Infinite Challenge package. Getting ready here for game number 2 between Todd Stevens and Dillon McGough. For number 7 right now on our SCG Tour leaderboard, of course, Todd Stevens on the left. Got decimated in game number 1, but that's generally not the case for him. He does a lot of winning here on the SCG Tour and is certainly a modern aficionado, putting Bant Eldrazi on the map, of course putting Eldrazi Tron on the map, and eventually Green-White Collected Company. Curious to see what the 32-year-old from Denton, Texas's next deck will be, but for now, we take a look at the resume with 13 SCG Tour Open top 8s. 2 wins as well for Todd, who dresses well, given the character from the TV series White Collar and Neil Caffrey. He flew to Australia, which is far away from Denton, Texas, by himself when he was 16 to play in a tennis tournament. And he's a full-time Magic streamer on Twitch, also producing content for Star City Games on the premium side and involved in Versus videos. He's a busy guy who has made Magic his life and a member of Team BCW. Is Todd Stevens. And I think we need to also add another fact there that he is in love with casting Voice of Resurgence.
Yeah.
Maybe you should stage an intervention.
Plays Voice of Resurgence in every Modern tournament, semicolon. Has yet to have it trigger.
Yeah. Have you ever made an elemental? No.
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 But it's the threat.
It being there causing harm.
Yeah.
Your love for Voice of Resurgence, I'll tell you what. You too. I don't know if you've ever even cast a Voice of Resurgence before.
I'm trying to think about that now. Because I've played zoo decks in Modern where it's not out of the question they would have been in my sideboard, but I don't think so. I didn't play it at the Black Pro Tour.
No?
No. Unlike Champion Craig Wesco, I believe, had 4.
Oh, yeah. The green-white mage, Greg Wesco, Advent of the Worm, and everything else that was going on with his deck.
Yep. I did not play it at that Pro Tour.
You played red-white.
Yeah.
I recall. Temple Garden start here for Todd Stevens. For Dillon McGough, how about a Blackleaf Cliffs into a Thoughtseize?
Your classic Dryad Arbor, Dryad Militant Foundry Tree Denizen strategy.
Combo deck. You've played the world's...
Oh, look at that voice. He can't even cast it.
I was waiting. I was waiting for you to notice that.
He has islands in his deck. Oh, Todd. Come on, play. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this.
A hand of Courser of Crewfix, Neither Reliquary, Surgical Extraction Island, and Voice of Resurgence, folks. Big draw step here. Misty Rainforest.
Oh, peeled it.
It's online.
Here comes the voice.
Bang.
Man. Well, when the upside's this high, you've got to keep some risky hands.
True. It's very true. Looks like Dillon has another copy of Thoughtseize in hand.
It would explain the Thoughtseize on the initial turn. I'll take the Scavenging Goose because Stevens is threatening to play it. Now, there's nothing to Surgical, so you can go ahead and get the Surgical this turn. And now you're off and running with your graveyard stuff if the rest of your hand's good to go. Though, not easy to assemble from here with spending these cards on interaction. We'll see if the leftovers here are good enough to get any sort of engine online.
Well, it looks like Dillon's going to start things off after that Thoughtseize with a Wooded Foothills. Play that and sacrifice it. Going to fall down to 13, it appears. Let's get ourselves a Blood Crypt. He'll shuffle and present, and I want to see where he wants to go after this.
You know what I think of when I see Voice of Resurgence?
I cannot wait to hear this.
You know, in the cartoon, the Peanuts, when the adults talk,
Mm-hmm.
and just go wah, 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 wah.
I do.
Because there's all that text.
Yep.
It's like, wow, what is that thing up to? And it's just a bunch of wah, 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 wah. Now, Night of the Reliquary, on the other hand, that's a real legit.
That's a real Magic card.
That's got some powers.
Yeah.
You got to read that one.
You know one of those 2 cards is Mythic, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's not Night of the Reliquary.
Yeah. Booster boxes of that set's still available for like $37 or whatever.
You know where you can get those?
Maybe.
Maybe at StarCityGames.com.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they also might be expensive. I don't know.
A little faithless looting. I'm going to be discarding Gargadon and Vengevine, and now an Insolent Neonate post-combat. Settle the Wreckage of the draw. Let's see what this is going to be. Looks like we got a Corsair Crew Fix. Settle the Wreckage. Well, makes it worse when they see it. But now you sack it away, and they don't know. He doesn't know about the other one. Got him!
And, you know, it's how many copies of that card can he have? And
Not that many.
you know, I'm going to know if he draws it for the rest of the game because he's going to have that Corsair. So,
That's right.
I mean, I'm not going to play around it.
The setup is in. Now the Reliquary will sacrifice a forest. Get a Misty Rainforest. Top card Jamoka's Command. Easy, easy shuffle away. Get a basic forest now. Trigger with the Corsair. Looking for a land is Todd Stevens to take off the top of his deck and place onto the battlefield. Top card? Well, this is awkward. Noble Hire.
Yeah, but it's like really hard to beat the card from this spot, so who cares?
Sure, sure. It's also in play that Todd Stevens just shuffles it away on his upkeep.
Yeah, he doesn't have to take the draw if he doesn't want it.
That's
so.
right. Let's go back over to Dillon now. Gargadon down to 8. And this is not the explosive draw that we saw in the last game. That is for sure. Great place to start is a Faithless Looting, so that's where Dillon will go.
So we were talking about some MTG finance topics earlier. Some spec.
Lightly, briefly.
Do you think that Todd just has a massive position on Voice of Resurgence?
No,
it would explain.
No.
It would explain some things.
No, I do not.
He has so many lands in his deck that prevent him from casting it on the second turn.
Plays green-white in every tournament, man. He plays Voice of Resurgence as a green-white in every tournament.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is this the long con?
Yeah. Windswept Teeth will enter the battlefield here, gain a little bit of life. Path to Exile, the top card now. My answer to that question is no. I do not think that is the case. I think he just likes to play what he likes. And he very clearly likes Voice of Resurgence, which is going to do a great job of potentially blocking Vengevine or doing this.
Yeah, I mean...
Attack you.
Down to 8 here. The Gravecrawlers can't block, so you can just go ahead and sit on Sell the Wreckage, set up lethal for next turn.
There it is.
Easy stuff.
Down to 4 goes Dillon as he will block with Insolent Neonate and sacrifice it to Greater Gargadon. That falls down to 7. Let's untap. Ooh, forgot his Greater Gargadon upkeep trigger, did Dillon. I think that might be the second time he's forgotten that.
I don't think it's going to come down to that.
I don't think it will either. At least this game. But it's important to remember just because it's important to remember. Now, I love the way that Dillon played the first game of this match, but looks like he may have a couple hiccups here in this one.
Don't stress on it when the game's this far out of reach.
Again, I agree.
You want to keep it tight, of course.
Yeah, of
but
course.
It's not,
Beatdowns. In for 8.
Wouldn't be surprised here by just a no block. Depends now with the bridge in the graveyard. He just might want to deal with the grave crawlers, although he can't really because Gargadon's there to get him in the graveyard.
Here is Settle the Wreckage. But Dillon is going to sacrifice all 3 creatures and make 3 zombies. So Gargadon will fall down a little bit lower. So the first Settle the Wreckage gets handled here. The combination of Greater Gargadon sacrificing creatures and Bridge Flow making zombies. However, these zombies are not ideal on this battlefield. And Stevens is going to be attacking here for lethal, so these zombies will likely just be chump blockers. We'll go back over to Stevens now. His top card is a Windswept Heath. He'll draw that Windswept Heath. Next card after that is another Todd Stevens favorite.
Worship.
Worship.
Another tough one for this deck to defeat.
That is correct. Now, do I think Todd Stevens has a heavy position on Worship? I do. I do. Because it's in his deck every tournament. I kid, of course. You know, you must think of it this way. Voice of Resurgence combination with Worship, it's 2 creatures.
Right. It's very hard for them to kill you through that.
Maybe that's the combo. Maybe that's what you've been missing this entire time, is that they work so well together. We have blockers, folks. The zombie is going to get in front of Courser of Crewfix, Voice of Resurgence, and Knight of the Reliquary. And it looks like Gargadon will eat all of those. And the big 9/7 is going to go down to just 1 counter. Draw a card. Yes, it's very clear that Dillon has missed the trigger here for Greater Gargadon 3 times. Yes, and now.
Oh, no, but Todd doesn't want him to forget that one.
That's correct.
Because he doesn't want to have a 0 mana free sacrifice at any point. So that one is actually, Todd intervenes there and says, no, that one's coming
You have to do that one.
Yeah.
Well, Dillon is going to concede this particular game, folks, as he cannot win this one. As Todd Stevens is going to win game number 2 here over Dillon. McGough, Bant Midrange, and Vengevine of the red-black variety are going to get ready for a 3rd and final one here. Do we see anything potentially here for Dillon or Todd to bring in now that they've seen some stuff? I think what we saw from Todd was somewhat expected.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot that changes here. You know, you could say maybe that Stevens has enough graveyard hate that you would want to go to something like Bitter Blossom, but with Stevens having Worship, I think Bitter Blossom is too bad of a path to go to. So I think you're probably in the same spot of the creature removal and the Thoughtseizes.
Alrighty, well, you see both players are going back to the drawing board a little bit here, and while they do that, I do want to let you know that our good friends at Ultimate Guard are going to have some pretty exciting unveils taking place at Eschenspiel later this year. I don't know why I know that. I guess I just do. But for now, we have some messages from them. Welcome back, everybody. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan. We're here in the booth. Nick Miller checking out the feature match area right now, looking for some matches to move over. Potentially, if you look behind Dillon, you see Nick's got his eyes there on Peter Terbergen and Ben Weinberg doing battle. Weinberg, I know, an Ironworks aficionado now at this stage of his Magic career, and for Peter Terbergen, we saw Hardened Scales Affinity, so maybe we have the opportunity to move that match over. We'll see. Feature matches are wrapping up pretty quickly. Behind Todd Stevens, we've got Eli Cassis, former Invitational champion in the feature match area as well. So you can see some big names here in attendance this weekend in Baltimore. Both these players will take a look at their opening hand. It looks like Dillon is going to keep his hand. Stevens will as well. And for Dillon, he is going to play a Wooded Foothills. Temple Garden into a Noble Hierarch. I've said this a couple times. This match, I'll say it again. A classic Todd Stevens start.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the Dramoka's command.
2 surgicals, Dromoka's Command, and a path, it looks like.
Let's see what we have here. Lightning asks you a question. Discarding a Vengevine. Goodbye, Noble Hierarch.
See if Stevens wants to try to get him in the draw step here, or just lets it ride for now.
I like letting it ride.
Me too. No rush. You can if McGough wants to spend some time spinning his tire to get the Vengevines out, let him do that when you have the surgical as cover.
There's a great. Plus, you get to do this, which is making waste a card.
That's exactly that. He's going to try to do something.
Yeah. Hangerback Walker for 0. That was an attempt to bring back Vengevine, but Todd Stevens has Surgical Extraction. You'll see Dillon's hand now, and it is not particularly good, folks. A Stomping Ground, a Wooded Foothills, and a Goblin, a Bushwhacker. And we've got a player who's going to lose all of his Vengevines, so all of the Mythic 4/3s with haste will be taken out of his library, and the one that was in his graveyard has been exiled.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the leftovers here, not the best.
You were being kind. Stinky, that's how I would describe them.
McGough's hand has been whittled down to the point that Voice of Resurgence would be good against him.
What do you think about that?
Hopefully Stevens' next land is an island or a Gavany Township or a Celestial Colonnade, Ghost Quarter. These are all actually in the deck.
Well, he drew Voice, and he can't play it.
Next turn. It's still good next turn.
It is still good.
It's still
It is
good next turn.
This is like the perfect match for you.
Yeah, I know.
Notable Voice of Resurgence hater, Patrick Sullivan.
Todd Stevens still has Voice of Resurgence in his deck post-board, but McGough's deck is so ineffectual in the face of any sort of interaction that even that card's good enough. This is the Magic that I enjoy the most. Here we go.
Well, better than nothing, as there's a Path to Exile. It's going to go after maybe the Gravecrawler, but Stevens is going to decide which one of these knuckleheads.
Maybe the Neonate.
It's probably the best of the bunch. Certainly the most annoying.
It's the highest. It gives McGough the highest leverage draws.
Yeah.
If you're going to play a Voice of Resurgence, what do you care about 2-1? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And now there's a good window to do it because McGough has no cards in his hand, so it's a freebie to get rid of the Neonate.
Also, it's a little bit annoying with the Menace and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
Might
yeah.
as well just get rid of it.
That's where I'm at.
Looks like Stevens is going to go after Gravecrawler, however, so Dillon will get to search up a land, and Stevens will take a little bit of damage here from the Bushwhacker turn. We will go back over to Todd now. Todd will draw a card. He's picked up a copy of Engineered Explosives, folks.
Stevens in great shape here. Doesn't look like he has a third land.
Well, if things were difficult before, they've gotten a lot better now, as the Voice of Resurgence has shown up. This will be a Greater Gargadon on suspend. 10 counters on the beast. And now Neonates, given the Menace, will come in here safely for an attack for 1. Steven's going to fall down to 11 when we go back over to Todd. He's looking for a land, folks. He found a Spell Queller. Not ideal. Dromoka's Command in hand, however.
Dromoka's Command in hand and another Surgical Extraction. So, still no reason to be concerned if you're in Stevens' position. But land number 3 would be nice.
Perhaps he is merely annoyed at his draw steps at this stage.
Dromoka's Command time. Get a counter on your Voice and just start drilling.
Hey, you want to go on offense?
I want to start banging. Yeah, he's at 14.
Sure. Okay. Take care of the Neonate. Make it into a 3-3. Let's go.
Don't let him find a bridge and suddenly it's like an issue, you know?
Well, here comes the Voice of Resurgence.
Effects before damage. Bang!
Neonate down, folks. Gargadon will eat it for lunch. 9 counters on the suspended beast. And it looks like Dillon should take 3. I think it should be 11-11 if memory serves. There we are.
That's what I have.
All right, Gargadon down to 8. Draw a card.
There's multiple targets on this thing, so it doesn't fizzle if you sacrifice in response. I think there's just a check for that. Stevens gets his counter either way.
Looks like Dillon may have drawn something that matters here as he slides his mana over a little bit. Eyeing up maybe that lone Blood Crypt. And what? Maybe not. Going to start by attacking with the Bushwhacker. I'm the Bushmaster. Down to 10. The Gravecrawler. Let's go back over to Stevens now. Stevens will draw Knight of the Reliquary. Still on the hunt for that third land. Hasn't found it just yet. Engineer Explosives on 1. Will he slow down? He will.
Yeah, Stevens would, of course, love to do everything in one turn, but his hand is now so jammed up with 3s, and it's a hedge against him not drawing a land next turn. He still has the option to Explosives away McGough's board.
Gargadon is down to 7. Gravecrawler looking to come on in, along with the Bushwhacker. And it looks like Stevens will block the Gravecrawler, which will tick Gargadon down to 6, take 1. Stevens falls down to 9. Advantage currently, Dillon McGough. Let's go back over to Stevens. Can he find land 3? The answer is yes, finally.
Now remember that Stevens fell to 9 on that attack, which means he's in 1 shot from Gargadon territory. And Gargadon is starting to come off suspend next turn. So if Stevens taps out for a play, now because he has Voice of Resurgence, he still has 2 chump blockers. He at least can manage it in the short term that way. But it is noteworthy that he's got no protection right now. I suppose if he gets to untap with Knight of the Reliquary, then he has effectively 4 mana and then Settle the Wreckage online, and he's in the clear. But he has to be mindful of the Gargadon here because it is threatening lethal on the table.
Who's laughing now at Voice of Resurgence? Not 1, but 2 blockers. What now? Looks like Dillon has missed the counter on Gregor Gargadon again. Here is Faithless Looting. Now here's Faithless Looting again. Two lands will go to the grave right there for Dillon. And we'll go back over to Todd Stevens, who will untap. He will draw a card, picked up a copy of Plains. That's land number 4, which allowed him to play Settle Wreckage number 1. And I think things can maybe get a little bit easier now.
Yeah, he's still, because he's at 9, he's facing down a 9 power Gargadon. He's still going to be mindful and conservative here. He has a lot of options for how to manage this game. He can start attacking and try to force McGough's hand to play into Settled Wreckage. That line's a little bit dangerous because McGough has shown Thoughtseize, so you don't want to put yourself in the spot where you have Settled Wreckage and you're otherwise naked, and if he rips it out of your hand, you just die. So I think Stevens probably wants to navigate it such that he has Voice of Resurgence back on defense with an additional piece of protection. And whatever offense he can manage from there, that's gravy.
This is an attack for 3 from Voice of the Resurgence.
Another shot.
We'll go back over to Dillon. There's the counter. And now here's a Viscerous here. What you can tell when playing this deck is much worse when it doesn't have Bridge from Below.
Yeah, it's just, you're trying to, when you're playing a deck like this, you're just trying to get your edge by having such a dominant game 1.
Spell Queller looking to take care of the Viscerous here. That will work. Spell Queller giving Stevens a little bit of air superiority as there is a Insolent Neonate. Todd Stevens will activate Knight of the Reliquary. Sacrifice of Plains will Stevens see what he wants to go dig up. A lot of options here for Stevens.
Might want to get Gavany Township soon.
Looks like for now it's just going to be Misty.
Yeah, I mean, this is an opportunity to just put a free lane in the graveyard, so his Knight's a little bit bigger.
Engineer Explosives will take care of some 1-drops. Gargadon will sacrifice those 1-drops. It's on 3 counters. It does have the ability to eat 3 lands to come onto the battlefield here, but I don't think that that's something Todd Stevens would mind too much, as Stevens is working his way towards lethal damage this game.
Yeah, I mean, if he can turn on the Colonnade here, he has a lethal. I guess he doesn't have enough mana to do everything and attack, but he's approaching lethal over 2 turns here against no board. And Cell of the Wreckage still back in the as backup here, so.
Ghost Quarter, the draw and the play here for Stevens. You mentioned the Settle Wreckage that Stevens does have in hand. It looks like Spell Queller will be the only thing coming across here. Stevens playing a little bit defensively here, but it appears as though there's no reason not to.
He can't deal lethal damage this turn, and he has it locked up the following turn, so he can afford to be super cautious.
Stevens with Surgical Extraction in hand. And looks like Dillon did miss his Greater Gargadon trigger again, but Stevens asked him to place it on the stack and wanted to do that. So here is Stitcher's Supplier, Bridge from Below, among the cards that are going to go into the graveyard.
And this is where Stevens' second Surgical Extraction can come into play.
Sacrificing the Stitcher's Supplier. Looks like with the Bridge from Below zombie trigger on the stack, Surgical Extraction will take care of the Bridge from Below. That means no zombies today here for Dillon. And though it took Todd Stevens a little while to get off the ground here this game, he kept a hand that had enough interaction and found a voice of resurgence, Patrick.
Right. That was the offense and the defense.
That's correct.
He could just interact with the graveyard more effectively in the post-board games, and the Vengevine deck's a lot weaker when people can do that.
Perhaps this Vengevine deck is softer to graveyard interactions than people realize. Who knows? As Greater Gargadon has come off suspended onto the battlefield now. Roar!
Well, it's the blend of Stevens being able to both put enough stuff on the battlefield where your random creatures aren't good enough, and then interact with the graveyard